And welcome to day one of the Diving World Series 2017 in Guangzhou. We already have the two 10-meter synchro events for women and men, both won by China. Can they go through the card today? Every likelihood in the women's 3-meter, that will be the case. Men's 3-meter, very competitive last week in Beijing, and likely to be so today with Cao Yuan and Ziyi and Mears and Law, and indeed Zakharov and Kuznetsov going for the gold in the second competition. First up though, it is the women's 3-meter. We have 7 going to start here, 6 in the men's. And for those who aren't acquainted with what happens in the Diving World Series, and indeed in international competition, 5 rounds for the women, 6 rounds for the men. One thing is constant though, first 2 rounds are the required dives, all of them worth 2.0. There will be, in a moment, a list of the synchro judges and the execution judges, obviously looking for very different things. When the marks come up on your screen, you'll see there are lines through certain marks. They do not count towards the total, and the degree of difficulty is what's the multiplication. It's a little bit more complicated on synchro, so I won't go into the whys and wherefores. When we get to the individual events tomorrow, much more clear-cut. The numbers that matter on screen then are multiplied by the degree of difficulty. It's a little bit more convoluted when it comes to the synchro. And here come the judges. 2 different sets of judges. As I mentioned, the execution judges looking for the dive to be completed. Synchro judges looking for the divers to arrive in the water at the right time and to have done the dive pretty much in synchronicity. We may well get into the area that we talked about on the 10-meter, where the divers arrive at slightly different points in the pool, but that tends not to be discounted in the marks. It tends not to be taken into account, to be honest. So they're the execution judges, 4 of them, 5 synchro judges, and they will be evaluating the quality of the dives from the ones who are coming up. The ladies ready for the women's 3-meter synchro. Dives in the 3-meter don't actually get above 3.1. There's British judges, and there's Nick Robertson-Baker, former Great Britain diver, on the right-hand side. Nice tops, boys. As Mark has moved from Plymouth to Leeds in recent times. And even though on the graphic it did say we're having the men's first, we have got the women's first. Just a double take on that. And then the 7 who will go to start: Russia, Germany, Malaysia, Great Britain, Canada, Australia and China. And a few new combinations and a few well-established ones as well. Australians have been around for a bit. New partner for Jennifer Abel, Melissa Citrini-Beaulieu. And the British combination of 2 very talented youngsters, Grace Reed and Catherine Torrance. 5 rounds of dives for the women. First 2 rounds 2.0. I say that none of the dives in the program get above 3.1. When we get to the men, it will be a very different story. For example, Laura Mears will go up to 3.9, and the Chinese go up to 3.6. So first of 5 rounds, first of 7 dives that we're going to see in round 1 from Nadezhda Bashina and Kristina Ilink. It's the inward dive. Ooh, kind of lost her shape, did Ilink, on the way down there. Just a little crimp as she was going in for the entry. That may knock her back a little bit in terms of marks. 50 is what I will say is the total and target you should be aiming for. And they may come a little bit shy on that, mainly because of Ilink. Doesn't look totally happy with that dive. And probably there's a good reason why. Fairly straightforward. Synchro's okay, 8.5. Execution not back to 8. So 49.8 is the opening mark for the Russians. Nina Henschel and Friederike Freya for the Germans. Inward dive for them as well. The two divers are doing this, and it was the Russians and now the Germans who have decided to open with this. Often you'll hear a bit of reaction from the crowd here, but not a lot of on the Germans. That's slightly worse than the Russians. By a couple of marks, yeah, a little bit scrappy, a little bit scruffy, and also Henschel going in a slightly acute angle, which will be punished on execution. 2.8s. 2.8s on synchro and 7.5 as well. Nothing really starts to develop until after round 2. This is the dives they have to do in the different categories. They could choose which dive they want to do, of course, but all of them worth just 2.0. So Ang Yang Yi and Sabri for Malaysia. Their opening gambit is a back dive. Fairly straightforward 1-2. Yeah, it's decent. It's all right. It's best dive of the 3 we've seen so far. Not a very complicated one. Just make sure you take it for the right time, right kind of height. Synchronicity pretty decent on that. A little bit more splash than perhaps they would have wanted. 49.8. Nobody's actually hit that 50 threshold yet. A lot of smiling from Catherine and Grace. Next read, Catherine Torrance. Two of the relatively new names. Grace and both Catherine and Grace very good juniors. It's going to be the inward 1.5 for the Brits. Nice. Nice start. Yeah, that's well, that should be a 50 plus. That's pretty decent. Actually, no. Judges, I think judges came probably on the entry actually, because the dive itself was all right. I think that's a bit tough. 46.8 to be absolutely honest. I think it was worth a bit more than that. But that's not done them too much harm. Early stages. Jennifer Abel, closest to us. Melissa Citrini Bolio, a new partner in the 3 meter. And you've seen it once, you'll see it again. Here comes the back dive for the Canadians. 2 more to come after this. Now, one thing Jennifer Abel does get is great height. Now, she's got to get a partner who gets great height as well, because if she doesn't, look at that. Really does project herself off the board. Partner just going at a slightly askew angle. And that's why 46.8 is the result. It's very hard to partner Jennifer Abel because she is so powerful off the board. Gets a lot of elevation. Madison Keeney and Annabelle Smith for the Australians. Back dive from them as well. Nobody yet has gone over 50. Nice Cossey's girls, and a nice opening as well. Decent distance from the board. And that could be our first 50 plus score. Nice height. Decent synchro. And hands come together, clasped on entry. Yeah, not too much wrong with that. 51 for the Australians, couple of 8s on execution, couple of 9s on synchronization. So they've put themselves in the lead for the time being. Shi and Zhu are going with something we've not seen yet in the competition, which is the forward dive. Russia Germany doing this in round 2. Yeah, crowd like it. That may influence the judges. Nothing wrong with the synchronicity there. Height just about the same. And yeah, you're going to get some good marks because they landed together. And the key to this is you should only really see one diver on entry. And that's what Shi and Zhu pretty much did. 3 9.5s on synchro. That was very impressive. A couple of 9s on execution. So already they've opened up a little bit of an advantage over the rest. And only 2 went over 50 and 55.80 for the Chinese. Australia in second, and then Malaysia, Russia joint third. Early stages yet. 4 more rounds to come. And the bigger dives, the 3s and the 3.1s, coming from round 3. We're back with the Russians again. As I mentioned, forward dive will be done by the Russians and the Germans. It's only the Russians, the Germans and the Chinese who are attempting this. Forward dive, as ever, 2.0. Approach all over the place. Well, judges should discount some marks for that. It's only half a mark because the build-up was ragged, to put it mildly. And once they got into the dive, it was, well, okay. No more than okay. And that will be reflected in the marks. 48.60. Seemed to me that neither of them counted in properly there because they started off at slightly different times, caught up, and just about got in there roughly the same time. 48.6 is what they get. Lena Henschel and Friederike Freya for Germany. Oh, now look how far apart they are there. Now, to me, that was a long way apart off the board and should have at least half a mark taken off, but that will probably not be under consideration by the judges. It's not a particularly great dive anyway, so it probably won't affect the scores massively. 7.5 and 7. Well, maybe they have been slightly deducted there because that was ragged on entry. I think the Germans are going to be pushing for a top 3 place here. Hang and Sabri for Malaysia. Now, all the 4 pairings to come will do this. Reverse dive. Ooh, again. Well, preparation. Remember, they can alter the tension of the board, each of them. They have a little fulcrum at the back, which moves the board from a bit more solid to a bit more flexible, and they didn't quite get their approach right on that, but ultimately the dive was okay. The preparation for it not brilliant, but 49.2 will be okay. It moves them to within the 100 mark. Yeah, slightly disappointing start for the Brits. I thought the dive looked a bit better than the judges did. And they gave them relatively low marks. 46.8 on the opening dive. Here comes round 2 for the British pair. Good height. Just a little bit over on entry from Grace. The height's pretty decent. Look how high they get. Very good height on that. And the entry is not bad, apart from the fact it wasn't vertical, and that will deduct a little bit from the marks. 48.6 for Reed and Torrance. An improvement on round 1. On to the new Canadian pair, or newish Canadian pair anyway. Jennifer Abel and Melissa Trini Bolio. And again, it'll be the same dive, the 301B, or the reverse dive if you prefer. Yeah, both of them went in slightly at 45 degrees, but the preparation was good. Takeoff was decent. Again, you have to try and match Jennifer for height, and that was much, much better. Yeah, they really were in synchronicity there, although you can see both of them went in at a slightly askew angle. But the synchronization was decent. Execution just marked down a little bit, 51.60, but that'll put them in the lead. In fact, actually puts them just behind Malaysia by 0.6. Let's move on to Matt Zucchini and Annabelle Smith. And so the good thing about this round is you can get a chance to compare and contrast. There's a lot of attack in this dive. Bit too much attack, unfortunately, from one of the Australians. So their finishing position was not where they wanted it. Now look at their landing positions in, well, you can't from that angle, of course, because that's straight on, head on, but sideways on shot will tell you that they landed in different places, and a little bit of improvement required on that dive to get them over the 50 threshold. 49.20 for the Australians. Our first round leaders, and I will be surprised if they are headed any of the 5 rounds. Should be a perfect example of the reverse time. Let's see what the Chinese can do with it. Yeah, that's more like it. That's how it should be done. Not much wrong with that. Right center of the board. No chance of going off to the side. Synchro was pretty much on par. They are very much in the groove today. Nice opening dive. Good follow-up dive. Not as good as an opening dive, but certainly the best that we've seen of the reverse dive so far. And that should be reflected in the scores, and is 53.4 for Shi and Zhu. And they've already opened up a 9-point lead over the rest. So Australia in second, Malaysia in third, Canada and Russia together. Great Britain in sixth, and the Germans just finding life a bit tough going early here in 7th place. Right, now we're into the main part of the competition. Round 3 is where the divers select their tariff, select from the list of dives and different categories they need to do. Everybody needs to do a forward dive, and theirs is going to be a forward 2.5 somersaults with 1 twist. Pretty much all the dives now are worth 3.0, as indeed this one is. Ragged. Not quite together on that, because they took off at slightly different times. You can see, look, one's won the race to the water, so the synchronicity should be marked down for that. Now the preparation, again, you should be able to see both divers going in at about the same time, and their bodies being together all the way through, but execution and synchronization have been punished by the judges, and they've got a bit of catching up to do now, the Russians. On to Germany, 7th of 7 at the moment, and they are going to go for a 3.0 with Pike. That's a back 2.5 somersaults for Henschel and Freya of Germany. Ooh, well, both of them flopped into the pool there. Both of them, I think, a little bit too low on the water by the time they got out of the dive. Not a lot of room, and reaching badly, snatching at the entry, and results in quite a lot of splash. That's going to be a very low score. Execution 6 and 6.5, and only 7s on synchro. So it's not going quite the way the Germans would have wanted. On to the Malaysians. Ang and Sabri. And the first of their higher tariff dives is the inward 2.5 somersaults. Ooh. Yeah, they're looking back at each other going, well, where did that go wrong? Sabri just somehow, some way, yeah, well, she's going off to the side a little bit, that's why. Kind of lost her bearings, and Tim Burr, as the legs go to the side, yeah, that's the key thing about the 3-meter board, is if you plant your feet in the wrong place, they can take you to the side, and that's exactly what happened with her dive. One went straight, one went sideways, and that is reflected in the execution marks. 5.5. Yeah, I think she knows what she's done wrong. Takeoff. Or obviously on the more complicated dives where you've got a lot of intricate things to fit in, you're probably thinking about the dive, not see where your feet are. On to the Brits. They're forward 2.5. Nice and central, but they lost it on entry, both of them. Yeah, the entry is poor right the way through this round so far. And I say she went central, actually she went slightly off to the left as well, but entries, I'm afraid, as the splash will tell you, were not good. Execution marks low, synchronization marks low, and a lot of catch-up to be done. I think it's probably out of their reach now in terms of a top 3 place for the Brits. Not for these two, though. Here comes the bell, and Satrini Bolio, but they're forward 2.5 with 1 twist. Can they do it better? Well, they got it together in the end. I love Arturo's face, because he knows that could have gone terribly wrong. Jennifer Abel had to kind of leap back there. She didn't quite get her preparation right, but being the wily campaigner that she is, she saved that dive, and will be rewarded for it, or should be anyway. 7.5 at 7, 7.5s at 8 on the synchronization. If he watch that back on replay, Jennifer Abel didn't quite time her preparation, but just did a little check before the dive, which enabled her to pull it off. And that takes the Canadians into the lead for the time being. On to Australia. Different dive from them. The inward 2.5 with Pike. Nice. Good entries anyway. And that should impress the judges. Got their entries absolutely right. And that came in pretty much the same. Oh, actually there were split legs there, which I didn't notice on the original entry. Legs need to be together, and slightly split legs, and slightly to the left as well, but I think overall not too bad. Synchronicity was good. Execution might be marked down just a tad. Yeah, it is. 7.5 and 7. 3 8.5s on synchro, and Australia go into a lead of 7 points over Canada. That will be short-lived, I think. She and Zhu go for their inward 2.5. Seen quite a few of the divers do this in round 3. Here comes their version. Well, first 2 dives from the Chinese have been exemplary. This is a much more complicated dive, as we've seen from some of the others. They haven't always gone right. Yeah, nice. Very nice. Crowd appreciating it. Judges, I think, will appreciate it too. It's better than average. Not top of the shop. I mean, no maximums for that, but good enough to take them clear of everybody else. 187.50 puts them 15 points clear of Australia. And China looking for their 3rd gold of the day, well on their way to it with 2 more rounds to go. Shi and Zhu lead for China. Australia in second, Canada in third, and Russia not too far behind. May well be 3 from those 4. Crowd in Guangzhou. Love their diving here. Love their diving because the Chinese are so good at it. It's rare that they're sitting there and don't hear the Chinese national anthem at the end of the competition. On to round 4. We will get into the range of the 3.1s soon. Not with these two, though. We've got Malaysia, Great Britain, Canada and Australia all doing 3.1s. Here comes a 3.0 though for the Russians, a back 2.5 somersaults with pike. Yeah, it's a case of FINA trying to save her dive, trying to bring those legs round. Height was decent, entries however not. Certainly from FINA anyway. And that's going to be knocked down execution marks as well. Look at them going in a kind of banana shape. Should be going in vertically, and a curve on that entry, and that will mean the execution marks are knocked down a fraction. Then Henschel and Frederica Freya for Germany with the reverse 2.5 somersaults with pike. 3.0, find themselves 6th at the moment of 7. Oh, I thought that was going to be quite nice until about 2/3 of the way down, and you thought, how are they going to save this dive? And unfortunately, neither of them could. Height's not bad, and then just here, oh, yeah, the water comes too quickly. By the time they've taken off, it's probably about 5 meters up, but they realize probably about here they can't get all the dive in, and that's going to smack her on the back of the neck. Execution marks poor, synchronization not much better. So difficult for you to see the water rushing towards you, try and readjust and get in there, and neither of them could. All right, first of the 4 3.5s. For Eng and Sabri of Malaysia. Yeah, actually they saved it quite well. The approach from both of them was a little bit staccato, but their toes in the right place on the ball, not over the edge. It's okay. Execution from Sabri might have left a little bit to be desired there. Yeah. The plume of water. Oh, hello. Don't have a disagreement now, girls, please. Thank you. The coach will tell you exactly what you've done wrong, even if you don't know it yourself, which I'm sure you do. Bit of catching up to do for the Brits. Find themselves in last place at the moment. They're better than that. Maybe they'll prove it here. Reed and Torrance with their 4 3.5. Yeah, short though. Short of vertical, I think both on entry. And they say it didn't arrive in the same part of the pool. Yeah, the execution for Grace might be really punished here. Did she get all the elements in? Yeah, well, yeah, kind of. Legs not vertical or anything like it. And that will be a low mark on execution. And not too good either on the synchro side of things. And they're probably not going to make up much ground. In fact, they do move above Germany. But it's marginal and certainly not in medal contention. As these two are. They're third at the moment. Here comes a bell and Citrini Bolio. Yeah, not bad at all. As I mentioned before, Jennifer is such a powerful diver that to match her, you really have to try and be as aggressive. Now, in this occasion, Citrini Bolio was a little bit too aggressive and got there before. You can see the tension on the face, the aggression on the face. As Jennifer going into her rotation and just getting there before, marginally before, is Citrini Bolio, but that's okay. That'll be decent marks. 7.5 at 7, a couple of 8s and 8.5 on synchro. So that should maintain their top 3 position anyway. Puts them in the lead ahead of Malaysia. Australians looking for, well, probably at this stage, they'll be thinking for silver rather than gold, unless the Chinese go wrong here. Here comes that dive again. Yeah, that's the best that we've seen of the ones who have done it so far. That's much more under control. Good height, which you need for this dive to fit all the elements in. Got to get those 3.5 somersaults in. We've already seen a couple of divers who just ran out of room. Well, they didn't. And nice and central. Getting a little bit closer together, but that's okay. A bit more splash on entry than they would like, but that's okay. 8.5s on synchro, 7.5 and 8 on execution. And the Australians move into a 10-point lead over Canada. Chinese deciding not to go for that option. They're don't have a 3.1 in their program actually. 3s all the way through, from round 3 to round 5. That's a great deal of differential in the 0.1, especially the way they dive. Back 2.5 somersaults with pike with 3.0, and 7s will put them into the lead again. Ooh. Yeah. Well, I think the coaches are telling you what you need to know on that. It didn't aesthetically float my boat on the execution. Synchro was decent, but the execution will not be worth 9s. As their legs came over, they did well to again save it, make sure there was not a massive explosion of water. 8.5s it is on execution, 9s on synchronization, but still good enough to give them a sizable lead over the rest of the field. 18 points now. So there you have it. China, Australia, Canada, and Malaysia 9 points adrift of the medals. Russia 10 points, and Grace Reed and Catherine Torrance have moved up a place to 6th after round 4. So the crowd eagerly anticipating, I'm sure now, another Chinese gold, which looks very much on the cards with the margin they've got. 18 points is a sizable advantage to take into the final round. Machina and Ilyink of Russia, not quite on their game today. Here comes their final dive, reverse 2.5. Yeah, it's all right. It's a mid-range dive. Nothing to get too excited about. He performed it okay. Synchro was slightly out. And a little bit of splash, but yeah, that's okay. They will have done this better in training, and we'll do it better in competition, I'm sure, in the future, but I'll get them decent marks. And 71.1 on that 3.0 takes them to exactly 300, which is now the total to beat. Germans going for their forward 2.5 with 1 twist. A lot again to fit into a dive off the 3-meter board. See whether they can time it right, because they've been a couple of dives short in this competition so far. Yeah, just over rotating, both of them. And able to hit the water at the right time. Legs going over. and particularly bad by Freya there. In fact, there's not really too much to recommend that dive, to be absolutely honest. Took off from slightly different places, landed at slightly different times, landed in different parts of the pool, and overall, that was a bit of a hodgepodge. 56.7. Execution marks very low, Freya. And Germans will likely finish at the bottom of the pile. Eng and Sabri for Malaysia. Still got a chance of getting in the top three. Here comes their forward 2.5 with one twist. Do have a very curious start to the preparation for their dive. They start from different places. They catch each other up, which is always rather disconcerting for me, because if you're not taking it from the same place or starting your move down the board at the same time, I'm not quite sure how you know when you're going to take off, but that's solid enough. And again, telltale sign that the entry was not quite right. A little bit of plumage afterwards. 72, 301, 98, new leaders. Now, Grace Reed and Catherine Torrance will want to finish with a bit of flourish. It's not been a great program for them so far. Back 2.5 somersaults worth 3.0. Sevens will put them above Malaysia. No. Well, they might be whistling on the British bench, but again, that's not great on execution. Synchro's not bad. Synchro's pretty decent, actually. But look at where the legs, just try and bring those legs back round. Should be a vertical entry, and neither was. And hard that they try to save it. It's always that extra little bit of water that appears after the dive that tells you it wasn't quite where it needed to be. And they go into third place, 276.48. Now the Canadians in third place. Still could overtake the Australians. Jennifer Bell with her new partner, Satrini Bolio. Inward 2.5. Everybody finishing on 3.0 dives. Here comes the Canadians' final one. Yeah, that's okay. That's going to give them a chance anyway. We should give them a medal at least. Now, whether it's going to be good enough to overtake, see, look again, something you don't see so much from sideways on. And of course, it's just where the judges are looking from sideways on. They don't really often see when the diver goes to the left or right of their takeoff. Well, she's happy. Is Jen? Jen's very happy they've completed that. And what are the marks? Here they come. 72.9, so 3:11.34 is now the number to beat, which means the Australians need sevens across the board to get second place back. Can they have a medal? Question is what colour. Forward 2.5, one twist for Keeney and Smith. No, they took off from different places on the board, but just about managed to complete that dive. Look where the toes are on takeoff. That'll be enough, I think, just about to get them ahead of Malaysia. Height different, entry is different, synchro not great. It should be reflected in the marks, but let's see whether it will be. There we go, entering slightly different places, and marks coming up now. 70.20, yep, that's enough. By almost, well, just over 7 points to get them into second place. So silver for Australia. That's probably the best they can hope for now, because the Chinese just need sixes, which she should be able to do pretty much in their sleep. Forward 2.5, 1 twist. 52 marks total will get the job done. Job done. Chinese gold, and by a substantial margin too. That'll be a good 30 or 40 point spread by the time these marks come up, I think. A lot of taping on those feet. They've been working very hard in training, but I think this is going to take them well above Australia. And decent entries, which of course the Chinese are noted for, the rip entry. And yeah, the marks good. Haven't seen them hit the dizzy heights today, but they've not needed to, not really been pushed. But good, not quite in alignment, as they often can be, but it is going to be silver for Australia and bronze for Canada. Here come the final marks for the Chinese. 78.30, good on synchro. 9s across the board. And 345 is their eventual total. And 345 is, what, 27 points clear of Australia in second. Much tighter between second and third for silver and bronze. Keeney and Smith getting it for Australia. And Abel and Citrini Bolio in third place for Canada. 10 points behind Malaysia. So that's the women's 3-meter synchro done. With the 2-3, I think we pretty much expected. Australia and Canada kind of interchangeable with silver and bronze, but that's 3 golds now for China. 10-meter women's and men synchro, and now the 3-meter for women. So the men's up next. 3-meter synchro for men. Only 6 pairings going in that. Canada, Mexico, Germany, Russia, Great Britain and China. 6 rounds of 3-meter synchro. Some big dives in there too from the likes of Laura Mears. They're going to go for 3.9 and 3.8 in their final 2 dives. Of course, we'll start with the 2.0s in the opening 2 rounds, and then it gets quite tasty from there on in. So come back in a few moments' time and rejoin us for the 3-meter synchro for men. So there were the synchro and execution judges for the men's 3-meter. And we have 6 pairings to go very shortly from Canada, Mexico, Germany, Russia, Great Britain and China. Most of these pairings have been around for a while. Imbu, Dulac and Gagne have. Campo with a slightly different name for Romel Pacheco these days, but it's the same man. Stefan Feck and Patrick Hausding for Germany. Zakharov and Kuznetsov. Laura Mears and Cao Yuan and Ziyi for China. So there aren't going to be too many surprises here. No rookies in here. These are all quite established and well tried and tested pairings. So we're expecting a quality competition. And no, there are diving fans who are probably shouting at me going, yes we know, but I'm going to tell you anyway. First 2 rounds, 2.0. No matter what the complexity of the dive is, still only be worth 2.0. Then we move on into the higher stratosphere in terms of the degree of difficulty. And we'll go up to 3.5, Mexico 3.8, Germany 3.5, Russia 3.8, Great Britain 3.9. That's their round 5 dive, which is the really complicated one, which is worth a lot of points if they get it right though. And China go to 3.6. So that's where the Brits could potentially win this, is if they get rounds 5 and 6 correct. And they've got 3.8, 3.9. And that's why they push the Chinese. Of course, they are the Olympic champions. Laura Mears will be going 5th. And it was basically that diving program that enabled them to beat the Chinese in Rio last August. Here come the Canadians to start things off. Philippe Gagne and Francois Imbu Dulac. And they will go with a dive and nobody else is doing in the first 2 rounds. It's the inward dive. 50 plus is essential in this competition, first dive and second dive. And 50 they should get. We'll be there or thereabouts anyway. Imbu Dulac and Gagne. It's a fairly straightforward dive. That should be worth over 50. And entries all right. A little bit of extra splash, but not a massive amount. And 50 plus, yeah, 51.6 for the Canadians. 8.5 and 8 on execution, a couple of 9s and 8.5 on the synchronicity. These boys sometimes push the boat out, but 3.8 is as high as they will go today on their final dive. We'll start though with the back dive, which will be done by Germany, Russia and Great Britain in this round, and by Canada in round 2. Up and down, separating out just a little. So there were 3 bodies in there. 2 entered and then the 3rd appeared, but yeah, it's all right. Not as good as the Canadians of their opening dives. That's going to put them in 2nd place. Yeah, 49.20 on synchronization 8s and 8.5 on execution. But don't really tell too much from the opening 2 rounds of dives because they are fairly rudimentary. Stefan Feck. Closest to us, Patrick Hausding on the far side. Now that is better. That is better for the Germans than we saw from the Mexicans. Same dive will get more points. That'll be a 50 plus for Feck and for Hausding. Considerably better than the Mexicans previously. And good solid 54, which brings a smile on Patrick's face. Now these two, on their day, can be quite explosive. Ilya Zakharov, Evgeny Kuznetsov. Same dive for them. 54 to match the Germans. Very powerful. Massive takeoff from both. And that'd be very close. Maybe slightly less than the Germans. Or maybe the same. Yeah, entries pretty much the same. And exactly the same in terms of marks. 54 from them, so good standard to open things up from both Germany and Russia. Let the battle commence. Now the likely lads, Laura and Mia, Olympic champions from Rio. Back dive for them. They know what the standard is here. It's pretty tasty already. 54. That's closest to us.
1, 2, 3, go.
Yeah, it's all right. A little bit of a hitch in Chris's dive there. Not sure why, but good there, good there, good there, good there, good there. Yeah, just slightly out late compared to Jack. And that will probably just reduce their mark marginally. And marginal is the operative word. 53.4, no real damage done. Now, Cao Yuan and Ziyi. Different dive from them. It's the forward 1.5 for the Chinese. Yeah, they've come to play big time. Nice takeoff. Again, maybe a little bit too close to the edge of the board, actually, which will get punished. And yeah, takeoffs. Ooh, feet came together there, which slightly altered the delivery of the dive, and that's going to knock them back a couple of marks. The judges will have spotted that. 51.6. Yeah, 8s for synchronization. Execution down, but don't really do too much damage in the first 2 rounds, as long as you're there or thereabouts, and they are. So we have joint leaders after round 1. That is the Germans and the Russians. Great Britain in 3rd, and Canada and China and Mexico in 6th place. Round 2, second round of requireds, 2.0. As I mentioned earlier, you can adjust the tension, that little wheel by their feet. It does adjust how tight, how taut, how flexible the board is. Every diver has a slightly different setting. Some like it not to flex too much, some like quite a bit. And here come the 2 Canadians, Imbo Dulac and Philippe Gagnier. Back dive from them. Yeah, execution all right. Positioning not as good, but that's solid enough. Not as good as their opening round dive, however. And just a little bit knocked back on synchronization there. 3/8. One judge saying it's 8.5. Now on to the Mexicans. Aya Campo and Romel Pacheco. And it's a reverse dive for them. 6th after the first round. Don't expect them to stay there for very long. Ooh. Slightly off in terms of their delivery from the board. And in terms of height, that kind of affected the entry. So they'll be on the cusp of 50. It ain't going to be a big mark. But better than we just saw from the Canadians. Yeah, something to ponder over. 9 to 8.5 execution, okay. Synchro a little bit down on where they would like it to be. Now, in terms of medal contenders, I think there are 4 for 3, to be honest. Early indications would suggest that. Feckenhausding, forward dive for the Germans. Ooh. Bit of catch up there from Patrick Hausding. If you look, there you go. And height different. And Hausding gets the water marginally before Stefan Feck. 49.2, so that's not anywhere near as good as their opening round dive. Now, a little bit more complicated, a bit more intricate. This dive from Ilya Zakharov and Evgeny Kuznetsov. Forward 1.5 with 1 twist. Nicely done. Nicely done. Yeah, the Russians will be happy. Coaches generally trying to influence the judges with the whistles and claps. And that's all right. That's nice and solid from the Russians. I'll give them 50 plus. Just a little bit of splash on entry, though, which might deduct half a mark or so. But, punching their way through the water. Pretty vertical entry. A little bit of splash. That's 51.6. Synchronization pretty good. 9 in there and 2 8.5s on execution. Jack Law on the left. Chris Mears on the right. These two never stop talking and jabbering to each other, smiling. They really enjoy what they do. So they enjoy what they do when they're doing it well. Olympic gold medalist from last year. Silver medalist in Beijing last week. Here comes their reverse dive. Okay. Chris reaching a little bit. Jack on the far side, arriving about the same time as Chris, but that's okay. That's okay. It'll be worth 50 plus. They landed pretty much the same time. And up they go, vertically pretty much together, and just bringing those legs round. Jack Law, that's okay. 51, synchronization marks 8.5, execution marks exactly the same. Well, they're fourth after round 1. There'll be no alarms because they're not too far back. Nobody was after round 1. Back dive. Should be about the easiest thing that they could execute, and they've chosen to go with it in round 2 for Cao and Xi. And chances are they'll be in the lead after that. So that's going to be big marks. Nobody's really got big marks in this round so far, but that will be their entitlement here, and that should project them probably into the lead. The crowd have already seen the marks, so I think they know it's good height too. Nice attack, nice delivery, nice vertical entries from both. Won't be maximum marks because of the little bit of splash on the entry, but that's impressive stuff from Cao and Xi. And 55.8. Look at the synchronization marks, 9.5 across the board. And that does take the Chinese into the lead. Marginal though it is. They've gone from 4th to 1st. Russia in 2nd, Great Britain now in 3rd, and Germany in 4th, but only 4 points, just over 4 points between 1 and 4. As we kind of suspected, Canada and Mexico finding it hard to keep up at this stage, but this is where we move into the big stuff. Forget your 2s. Everything now is worth 3.1 or above. And we've got 3.1, 2 3.5s and a 3.4 in their program. They have to make the most of rounds 4 and 5. They want to leap up the standings. 3.1 is going to be their forward 3.5 somersaults with pike. Just short, both short of vertical on entry, which will knock them back half a mark to a mark. That bit good. They're coming a bit closer together, closer together, closer together, and on entry, a little bit of splash. They actually got quite close together, didn't they, from where they'd taken off? And the entries were a little bit off. So that's probably not going to be massive marks for the Canadians. 8s on synchro. 7 and a 7.5 execution. Would have wanted a bit more than that. On to Ocampo and Pacheco. For 2.5, 2 twists. 3.4, biggest dive we've seen so far. And a lot involved on this one. Got it all in. That was a key thing, because that is a complicated dive. 2.5 somersaults and 2 twists to get in from what, 5-6 meters. There we go. Rotation slightly out. Entries okay. Good save by Ocampo. And the marks will be mid-range, not top of the shot, so it didn't drop the dive. See how intricate and how complicated that dive is to get everything in. And synchronization 7.5 and 8, 8 and 7.5 on execution as well. Total of 79.79. It was 76. Down a notch in terms of degree of difficulty, but not in terms of description of the dive. A lot in this too. Reverse 2.5, 1.5 twists for the Germans. That's quite nice. That is not bad. Again, not quite vertical. I think on the entries there's just a little bit of over rotation, but and also they didn't, yes, a bit more than over rotation. Went sideways again, those legs just falling away. But again, where the judges, where they are, you can see them looking sideways on. Won't necessarily spot that. We don't on the original one. And experienced divers, these two, try and save that dive. And 81.18 is a decent reward for a 3.3. And that will put the Germans into the lead. Now 3.4 in with 3.5 somersaults. Obviously, face coming back towards the board. You have to get a lot of distance on this to make sure that it's okay. Don't want to face plant on this one. In with 3.5 for Zakharov and Kuznetsov of Russia. Safe distance. Rotation slightly out at one point. And then just there, all falls apart a little bit, and there's a massive amount of splash from Kuznetsov. Yeah, Kuznetsov with a bit of plumage. 7.5, 8.5 on execution, 8.5, 8 and 7.5, again around the 81 mark. It's hard work, isn't it? On to Britain. Forward 2.5 somersaults, 2 twists for the silver medalist from last week and the gold medalist from the Olympics. Jack Law on the far side, Chris Mears closest to us. 8.5, so we'll put them into the lead.
1, 2, 3, go.
Nice, boys, very nice. Good aggressive takeoff, stamping the board. Liking that. Look at them together there, up together, and getting all that bit. That's really good, really good. Yes, Jack just a little bit over, just a little bit over. Chris actually, all right, Jack slightly lost the edge on that, and Peter Kimbo a little bit. Enough to put them in the lead though. Yeah, Chris keeping those feet planted together. Chad looks a little concerned. Shouldn't be. 84.66 is a decent return. And that is enough to give them position 1, for the time being at least. On to the Chinese. Also 3.4, but this time it's an inward. 3.5, so as we mentioned before, inward. With the they're going back towards the board again. Yeah. Class act. Happy. There will be little nuances of that dive they're not happy with, but overall that will be the best dive we've seen today. Inward 3.5 from the Chinese, and that will give them best marks we've seen so far on the high tariff dives. Actually, their entries weren't necessarily together on that, so synchro might be knocked back by half a mark or so. But judges don't get the benefit of the replays that we get. 8.5s on synchro, 8.5s execution, 86.70. Yes, biggest mark we've seen of the day so far, which you will have calibrated in your own mind. Ooh, making me seasick, don't do that. The China have taken the lead, or kept hold of the lead, with Great Britain in second, 5 points behind, but they've got some big dives to come. Russia in third and Germany in fourth, and just mark your card on that. Great Britain round 5 and 6 have much bigger tariff dives than everybody else pretty much, so you have the biggest tariff dive come up in round 5. So halfway, 3 more rounds to go, and well, the medals are definitely not decided yet. Still way too tight. Only 7 between gold and bronze. It's only 10 points between 1 and 4, so lots still to go. Here come the Canadians with their reverse 3.5 somersaults. Long way back off the board. Well, they pulled it round. It's getting that right distance between having your toes over the end and being a bit too far back. And there you go, toes over the end from the initial position to having toes over the end makes that dive quite difficult. Certainly does in terms of getting the synchronization right. Look where the toes are, right over the end of the board. And that affects the rotation, affect the entry, and results in quite a bit of splash from the Canadians. 7.5s and 8 on synchro, and 7.5 and 8 on execution. 80 is the mark. Ocampo and Pacheco. Reverse 2.5. 1.5 twists. Mexicans in 5th place. Yeah, nice vertical entry from Ocampo. Checo just centering himself on that board, and in they go, and it's all right. It's actually quite good, and be worth a fair amount of marks. Might just put them above the Canadians. And it does. 83.16 for that, with a couple of 8.5s on execution. Just outside the medals, but only just. And this is their highest tariff dive, the Germans. Feckenhausding with their reverse 3.5 somersaults. Bit of a mess from Stefan Feck. Hausding on the left. I think has completed that dive okay, but Feck wasn't quite where he wanted to be on entry. And yeah, actually neither of them completely completing it, but Feck certainly was the worst culprit of the two there. And the synchronicity was out as well, so not much to recommend that. Ooh, look at the way the legs kind of buckle as he goes in, just trying to save it, but execution afraid, for Housing. Not good. And that might have done their chances of getting a top 3 place a lot of harm. Right, now we're getting into the big dives. 3.6 for the Russians. They've got a 3.8 to finish. But, here comes their back 3.5 somersaults with tuck. Could be worth high 90s if they get this right. Which they don't. Which they don't. Yeah, they might be applauding, but she knows full well that is not a very good effort by the Russians. Height's okay, and then somewhere on the way down it goes a little bit awry. Certainly execution-wise from Kuznetsov, it's all over the place, and that is going to be caned by the judges. Both of them landing with their feet slapping the water, and 76.68 means that they lose a bit of ground. Now on to the Brits. Laura Mears, round 4, building up for their big dives to come in rounds 5 and 6. I've done by the Chinese and the Russians already. It's the inward 3.5 somersaults, 7.5s across the board here, and Great Britain will reclaim second place at least.
1, 2, 3, go.
Bit scruffy on entry. That's not going to be big marks for Great Britain. Quite low on the water, they're not quite sure. There's the biggest misprint of these two. Yeah, Chris just sliding to the side. Jack not quite finishing it in, well, he actually got the legs round to be, they were slightly separated, but he did manage to bring it round. And 82.62, yeah. Let's not have a little discussion about where it went wrong, and that's okay though. It's not fantastic marks, but it's enough to put them ahead of Russia by 8. You feel they probably have to be a little bit better than that to put pressure on these two. Reverse 3.5 for Kanji. Ooh. Yeah, I tell these boys mean business. They are really attacking these dives, which means that they can be a little bit ragged on entry. And Cao Yuan not quite on point here. And synchro marks will take into account they didn't quite arrive at the same time. Great attack though, and decent distance. They do land pretty much in the same place. Now, what did the judges say? Oh, 92. 92.4. So that's going to give them a healthy lead going into round 5. It's not a massive lead yet, especially when you take into account there are huge tariff dives still remaining, especially from the Brits. But the 1, 2, 3. Here's China, Great Britain and Russia, with Mexico just behind, literally only half a mark behind. And I think we could probably, even at this stage, maybe discount the Germans and the Canadians. Germans last 2 dives, 3.4 and 3.4. Everybody else is up in the 3.8 range, the main protagonists anyway. Round 5. Some big dives to come here. And the lowest tariff dives are 3.4, a couple of 3.5s and 3.9. The biggest dive of the competition we'll see from Jack Law and Chris Mears, which will be maybe their trump card if they get it right. This will be a reverse 1.5 somersaults, 3.5 twists for Imbo Dulac and Gagné. Whoa, dear. Well, mid-air, it looks like they were doing a completely different dive. They caught up and more or less got it together at the end, but that was ragged in the extreme. Look, there you go, arriving at different destinations at different times. Take off, kind of throwing it a bit, and again they're getting really close together. I know that foreshortens on your screen, but gap between them much smaller when they landed and when they took off. 77, so only 7 on synchronization. Not going to be Canada's day for a medal, or indeed you suspect. The Mexicans, though, they have got themselves up into 4th place and not too far behind 3rd place. This is their 3.4. They got 3.8 to end. Inward 3.5 somersaults, 3.4 for Ocampo and Pacheco. Yeah, it's all right. It's okay. Not going to win any Pulitzer prizes, but it's okay. And solid marks without being spectacular for the Mexicans. They'll be hoping for high 80s. You can see they're out of rotation there as well. And that will take a bit away from the synchro marks. Takes quite a bit away from the synchro marks, actually. 7.5s will not help them with their ambition of getting a top 3 finish. Still not totally adrift with 2 rounds to go. Fackenhausting for Germany. And they have lower tariff dives compared to the others here. So in the last round, anyway, inward 3.5 somersaults for the Germans. That's all right, apart from the leg split from Stefan Feck. So those legs come back together again. Yes, just about on entry. Toes just about meeting each other. But they've been there or thereabouts without being spectacular today, and they need to be a little bit more clinical in their execution than that. 7.5 and 7, and 2 7.5s and 8 for Fackenhausting. Well, they haven't quite got to the dizzy heights they can do sometimes. Ilya Zakharov and Evgeny Kuznetsov. Reverse 3.5 for the Russians. No. No, no, no. Not to be their day, certainly in terms of getting a top 2 place. You wouldn't have thought, though it's a lot of risk and reward for the Brits. That's ragged. Not particularly aesthetically pleasing for the Russians, and they will lose some marks, and particularly Kuznetsov, who is having his troubles today. So that execution mark will really take them down quite a bit, 5.5. Now, when this goes well, now remember, this can be worth over 100 points for the Brits, 3.9. Now, if they were to get 9s and 9.5s, they could get 3 figures on this, and that would change the whole complexion of the top of the table. This has to be good, though, if they want to snatch the gold away from China. This forward 2.5 somersaults with 3 twists needs to be pretty good, or very good. It's all right. It's all right. Camera didn't give us the best of angles for the entry there. Now, let's have a look again at how they go in. Now, problems with Chris there. It is all right in terms of synchro anyway. I think Chris is going to probably lose a bit. Yeah, he does, because he's short. He's short. Sorry, the original pictures did not really indicate that. There it looks good. There it looks good. There it looks good. And Chris now just realizing he ain't going to quite get to the water at the right time. So what could have been worth 100 points is worth 86. But still good enough to put them into second. Got quite a cushion over the Mexicans, so that's not a concern. But they're probably not going to catch the Chinese the way things are at the moment. Forward 2.5, 2 twists, 7's average will get them back in front. Well, they brought it back around. Seen them do that better in other competitions. Will be okay. Nines. I don't think it's going to be any nines on execution. Be surprised actually with any nines on synchro from that, because they weren't really together until there. And the marks are 87.72. There is one nine. There was two nines, one taken off. Two 8.5s. So that will keep their lead over Great Britain. About the same lead, to be honest. Slightly extending it. 374.22 plays 358. So Mexico in third place now. Zakharov and Kuznetsov back into fourth, but only 5 points adrift, and only 11 points adrift for third of Germany. And let's look at Canada. They are a point behind the Germans, so all six are still mathematically in with a chance of top three, though I think it's unlikely you're going to see the Germans and the Canadians get up there, just because of the degree of difficulty. 3.4 for the Canadians, 3.4 for the Germans. Everybody else 3.6 or above. The highest tariff dive the Canadians do, they have done. Two of them in round 4 and 5. They finish on 3.4. There's the forward 2.5 somersaults with 2 twists in the pike position. That's not a bad finish. Slightly short on entry was Imbu Dulac. And actually going not vertically in, sideways in. And they will finish with respectable marks, if not pretty eye-catching ones. And Coach relatively happy with the job they've done. 81.6 for that dive. Brings them 4:11.96. Mexicans need 6.5s really to usurp the Canadians, and this is the big 3.8 that a lot of divers are doing, both from the 10-meter and 3-meter board these days. Forward 4.5 with tuck. Very complicated off the 3-meter board. Gave it a good go, good attack, but chances are if you don't get the height's decent, you are going to run out of room, and they landed a long way apart in terms of time and also distance, and 77.52 is going to be for the Mexicans. And it does put them above the Canadians. Germans, because of the degree of difficulty, really have to nail this to give themselves any chance. It's an outside chance at best of a top 3 place. Forward 2.5 somersaults, 2 twists to finish off for the Germans. Yeah, a little bit short on the entries, which has been kind of their Achilles heel today. No ripped entries, no. Look at the legs just kind of folding, kind of buckling on entry. It's okay, it's not a disaster, but it's not the 8s they wanted, 8.5s, 9s they wanted to give themselves a chance for a top 3 finish. And these two outside the top 3 for the first time, but they can make that ground up. And this is worth 100 points if it's good. Has to be very good though. Forward 4.5 for Zakharov and Kuznetsov. Oof. Oh! How did he pull that round? Because in takeoff, they were not together. In fact, I thought he was going to lose his balance on takeoff, and then they're not together there, and then they are just about together there. Gosh, that was a good reparation job by both of them, to be honest. Yeah. Big smile. 93.48. That's not a bad return on what looked like it could be quite catastrophic. And we'll see Jack and Chris do the same dive. Again, they'll be hoping to bring up 3 figures, which they are more than capable of doing, and to give themselves any kind of chance against the Chinese, this has to be You would think 100 points plus, because they've got a lot to play with, the Chinese. Here comes the forward 4.5 to round it off for Lauren Mears. That's all right from Jack. It's okay from Chris, but it's not quite the 100 marks plus they wanted from that dive. It's going to be 90s, and will be good enough for, like it was in Beijing, second place. Chinese will have a relatively easy target, you think, in round 6 to overtake Laura Mears. 92.34 for Jack and Chris, 450 the total. And that means what we need to see from the Chinese is 76.38. In effect, 7.5s across the board will get the job comfortably done. And it's a 3.6. Back 3.5 somersaults. This for the 4th Chinese gold of the day. Yeah, again, it's not the best, but it's good enough. It'll get them into the 90s, which is where they need to be. Even the 80s would have been good enough. And again, the entries are a little bit scruffy by Chinese standards. Execution marks down on Cao Yuan, 7.5, 9 for his partner, and synchro marks are okay, and that'll be enough to win it by 16. So a repeat of what we saw in Beijing last week. Chinese gold and Great Britain in second place. Jack Law coming in for the handshake. And, well, there were 2 outstanding pairs, and then the rest scrapping for third place. And it was the Russians who got into third again, Zakharov and Kuznetsov. And then Mexico, Canada, and Germany bringing up the rear. 466.02, the winning margin of about 16. So we'll have a little gap. We'll have a little review of what we saw from the women's 3-meter synchro and the men's 3-meter synchro, and then we will be back with the medal ceremony. Another Chinese gold, another couple of chances to hear the Chinese national anthem. So 3-meter synchro women's and men's medal ceremonies to come in a few moments' time as we look back on some of the highlights and some of the best parts of the 2 previous events. So here we go with the medal ceremonies for the women's 3-meter synchro. And it'll be followed almost immediately by the men's 3-meter synchro. And the crowd here in Guangzhou are looking forward to another Chinese gold medal. 1, 2, 3 in the women's event. China, followed by Australia, and then Canada in 3rd place. New combination for the Canadians. Australians very well established. Here come the presentation party for day 1 of the FINA NVC Diving World Series 2017 in Guangzhou. Here come the Canadians. So a different combination this time. So used to seeing Megan Benefito, Jennifer Abel. Well, Jennifer Abel with Melissa Citrini-Bolio in 3rd place. Medal for the young Canadian. Another one for Jen to add to her burgeoning collection. I'm not sure where she puts all those medals, because more often than not she gets individual medals in the 3-meter, and she gets synchro medals in this event as well, whoever her partner is. 3:11:34 for bronze for Canada. They were beaten into 2nd place by the Australian combination of Madison Keeney and Annabelle Smith. Solid all the way through. Never really put that much pressure on the Chinese, kept a respectful distance behind them, but just didn't quite have enough to cause the Chinese any concern. A little Prezi to take away, 3:18:66. The final marks for Keeney and Smith. There will be a big roar and a massive round of applause, because up on the top podium go Shi and Zhu. Without being spectacular today, actually I've got to say all the way through the day, Chinese have not been as impressive as they can be on occasions. They can win these events by quite a lot. Well, haven't done today, but they've done enough to get over the line. There's the presentations of the lamps, and 3:45. Actually, in the end, it was quite a big margin in round 5. So bronze for Canada, silver for Australia, and Shi and Zhu of China, the gold medalists. So both of the synchro events in the 10-meter won by China, and both of the events in the 3-meter won by China. So first, the 2 medal ceremonies for the springboard synchro has taken place. Big smiles right across the board. Canada getting the bronze medal, silver for Australia, and the winners actually is a fairly sizable margin between second and first in the end, though wasn't always that way in the competition. China with Shi and Zhu. And very shortly we'll bring you the medal ceremony for the men's 3-meter synchro. And just like last week, Kanji getting the better of the Olympic champions Laura Mears. We'll see that in a few moments' time. Russia, Zakharov and Kuznetsov slipped outside the medals going into that final round, but got it together on their final 3.8. And they'll all be assembling in a few moments' time for the medal ceremony for the men's 3-meter synchro, and that's up next. Final medal ceremony of the day. All synchro events, 2 10 meters, now the 3 meters, and well, it seems to be a man on his own. Jack looking for his partner. Where's Chris gone? 2 Russians, 2 Chinese, and where are you? Typical Chris. Where are you, mate? Hurry up, you're needed, you're required. It's a synchro partnership, and there is only one person there, which is Jack Law. Quite sure where Chris is. Might be, as a DJ, might be spinning some tunes for somebody somewhere. Yeah, the Invisible Man. Jack Law overplaying his part. Russians will pick up their bronze. So it's third place for Zakharov and Kuznetsov, who also find it quite amusing that there's only 5 of them there, but there should be 6. And they did a good recovery, good reparation act in round 6 to get third place. Now, has he arrived yet? Is he there yet? Or is this going to be a rather embarrassing medal ceremony from a Great Britain point of view, because there is only Jack Law, or was only Jack Law, on his own? Chris has got caught somewhere. Got locked in the toilet or something. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, Zakharov and Kuznetsov, 4:30. No, he's not there yet. Jack had a big smile on his face. Now he's looking concerned. Where's the invisible man? Well, he's not there. So I think he'll be burdened down with loads of gifts and flowers and stuff, because his erstwhile partner is not there. 2 medals, 2 lots of flowers, 2 lots of lamps. I have no idea where Chris has got to. I'm not sure Jack knows either, to be honest. They're normally inseparable. They're normally about 6 feet away from each other, but not on this occasion. Jack Law on his own. Silver medal for both of them, and Jack will deliver the goods to Chris a little later on. The Chinese, however, are together. Cao and Ji, as they did in Beijing. It's Chinese gold again. Chinese gold, Great Britain in 2nd place, and Russia in 3rd in the final of the day. Men's 3-meter synchro springboard. .466 the winning score. Was at 16-point margin in the end, as we once again hear the Chinese national anthem for Cao and Ji. Clean sweep of gold for China on day 1 of the FINA NVC Diving World Series 2017 in Guangzhou. This is the synchro events completed for the day. Individual events with you tomorrow. Where are you, Chris? Well, he certainly is not there, so Jack having to perform the duties and ceremony on behalf of both of them for the silver medalists. That's it for today. Back with more from Guangzhou tomorrow. Individual events starting with the women's 3-meter. Hope you enjoyed our coverage today. And there's plenty more over the next 2 days from China.